Hello, welcome to another book review. I'm your host, Kristen, and today I'll be reviewing the MG fantasy book, Rainbow Reflections, A Kind of Magic, by writer Phoenix. In case you are interested in buying the book afterward, content warnings are body dysphoria and mild transphobia. I will start with the overall plot, then world building, and finally the characters. Also, this review will be spoiler-free up until this time, so if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend stopping before that timestamp. Now that those notes are out of the way, let's begin! The plot of Rainbow Reflections, which I'll be calling RR to save time, was very creative. Disclaimer before we dive into the plot, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of magic in a fantasy world. This boils down to more of a me problem, especially when it comes to elemental magic. There's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way. If I don't talk about the magic element much, this is why. It's not to say I didn't enjoy that detail, it's just this fantasy element isn't really my thing per se. I'm not going to count that against the book, of course, because again, this is a me problem, and it isn't the book's fault in any way. Alright, sorry about that detour. Now, on to what you came here for, the review. For the main plot, Zen and their sister, Ren, are trying to attend a magic academy. However, Zen cannot connect with their magic source, and they don't know why. Not to mention that one of the students, Sorella, was found in the woods. The teachers are trying to figure out where she came from, along with magic mirror shards that keep popping up everywhere. Over the course of the book, the students attend their classes, and the readers get to learn more about spirits and magic. Zen and Ren bond with Sorella, Ren collapses to visions, and Zen tries to tap into their magic. Also, we learn a few traditions, and the school year ends on a pretty exciting note, which I'll get more into that in the spoiler section. As far as a magical academy goes, this is a pretty standard plot. That said, I also like the elements that were thrown in that I haven't really read about before, such as the students learning martial arts and fine arts, so they didn't have to rely on their magic for everything and had regular, relatable hobbies. There is also a good mystery element to what the shards will complete, along with who is leaving them inside the school. For the writing itself, it wasn't bad for a debut novel. All the main characters have a pretty strong voice, along with wants and needs that are clear. However, this book does fall into the trap I often see when it comes to new novels, in that there isn't enough sensory description to really get me immersed in the world. The only senses described are sight and hearing. There is no touch, no smell, and no taste. Although this lends the book to a faster pace, it also sacrifices the reader being invested in the world. This comes with its own set of problems, as it makes it a little difficult to get into the first half of the book, in a sense that there is a slight bit of detachment in everything the characters do. For instance, when Sorella was testing for a blue sash during one of the martial arts classes, it was supposed to show her struggle and make the reader feel a sense of accomplishment and pride along with the character. Due to the lack of sensory descriptions, however, that never happens, and it comes off as an easy win. However, the characters themselves are pretty well written despite a few nitpicks. I'll dive deeper into that during the character sections, but I'll say right now that the relationships are wonderful. Also, the foreshadowing in this book was great. The pieces planted throughout the story made me want more, and the payoff at the end was well worth it. This book was really refreshing to read about in terms of world building. I normally don't like school settings because I'm not one for more reminders of all the classes and homework I have to do in the real world, but this school was rather entertaining. I would love to go there if this was a real place. Though the world building was presented in class, which was a good way to do it, the information itself was a little dry. Even the students themselves said the classes were boring, which didn't spark my interest at all. When the characters have to admit that part of the world building is not too enjoyable, that isn't the best sign. I would have preferred to see the characters do more actions involving the spirits in the class rather than be presented with info dumping. Speaking of classes, I did like how clearly the classes and rules were structured in terms of what year someone was. It makes sense how people in their first year wouldn't be allowed to use magic outside of class due to inexperience. Once the reader looks past the way the information presented, the world itself is definitely well thought out. The bits with the spirits definitely have creative potential, and I would love to see more in future books. How the flying ships were explained was also quite fun, as for one, it wasn't an info dump, and two, flying ships are awesome in that regard. Zen's relationship with Ren was very wholesome, and they both feel like actual siblings. I love Zen's characteristic of dressing in flashy, mismatching colors, along with how cheerful they are. Zen's struggle with finding their magic source and their frustration and worry over it was also a good, relatable part of their character, especially for younger people who may feel like they are behind when it comes to life in general and their peers. Compared to Zen, Ren doesn't have as much personality, but she does have a lot of good character moments. For instance, pretending Zen has air magic by using Ren's own and encouraging her sibling to keep up the lie. Ren also has an interesting relationship with Frost, as Ren isn't sure when to break off the relationship, even though the couple doesn't have much in common and it isn't working out. The fact that Ren was willing to break the rules in the first place to help her sibling, consequences be damned, shows that she has a ton of character agency and is willing to bend the rules for what she deems to be a good reason. So yeah, Ren has a lot of potential in the sequel. For the most part, Cinderella was a good character. She has a strong, abrasive personality, but clearly wants some friends, despite her prickly exterior. This is a character trope I tend to like, so Cinderella was among one of my favorite characters. I do have some issues with the overall consistency in her arc, but I feel like that is a bit too spoilery, so I'll put that in the spoiler section instead of addressing it here. Anyway, another aspect of Cinderella's character I found enjoyable was her mysterious past and the fact that she arrived at the school through the woods. As far as side characters go, Aktu was good. He was supportive, kind, and willing to listen. He also had some funny moments in the book, like instead of going down the stairs of a tower to leave, he just promptly exits through the nearest window. As a headmaster, however, he has a few flaws which actually make him more of a well-rounded character. As pointed out by some of the other characters, he tends to have a soft spot for his children and seems to tolerate behavior like lying about magic that might not be acceptable from other characters. Though more of a minor character, C3 was a decent enough antagonist in the second half. He was definitely a jerk, and I was not fond of him throughout the story, which was good considering he was written that way. One bit about C3 I did like, however, was that he was fascinated by the concept of spirits. Also, despite his flaws, C3 is still a teenager, so hopefully he will change for the better in future books. Alright, now on to the spoilers. I'll count to 3 seconds if you want to keep the book spoiler free. 1, 2, 3. And here we go! Despite Cinderella's strong character, I did have an issue with her overall arc. It was a little shaky in some places, which made it feel off to me. For instance, she starts to slowly get close to Ren and Zen and enjoys martial arts. Unfortunately, after a bad incident with the people she has slowly come to trust in the middle of the book, Cinderella vows to never get close to anyone ever again. The next chapter, however, there is a time skip and everyone is friends again. It feels odd, like the incident was supposed to have a major impact on Cinderella's arc, but it just didn't. As for Zen, finding out the source of their issue with their magic, that they had to acknowledge they were trans, was fine, but the concept of a magic block came out of nowhere. The characters quite literally introduce it, and the next few paragraphs, it ends up being the solution. A magic block is a neat concept, But I just wish that there would have been more foreshadowing for that, such as if one of the professors had talked about it in their class. Issues aside, I really love the ending half, how the mirror shards that C3 had been collecting came together to form a link to the spirit world was fantastic. The big battle at the end and the flying ship crashing was also very exciting. Overall, I give this book 3.5 stars. The world building and the characters were great, but the plot moved a little slow in the first half. Regardless, this was still a fun read. I recommend this and can't wait to read the sequel when it comes out. I hope writer will keep improving their craft and wish them the best of luck on their writing journey. Also, just before we go to the credits, I just want to quickly announce that I now have commissions open. I'm doing art and sensitivity reading. There's more info on my Twitter and Tumblr. Links are in the description below. I am also going to try to make adoptables every week. So if you like my work and are interested in supporting me, buying one would be a great help. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next review.